Welcome to the Island of Hope, Lord Mayor. I presume you've had a pretty long journey to get here from Tasmania.
Yeah, it's certainly a long way from many parts of the world. For those of you who don't know, Hobart is the capital of the island of Tasmania, which is Australia's smallest state. And Hobart is Australia's oldest city. In terms of the colonisation, we were colonised second, and so we're quite a historic city. But I think one thing that's really special about Hobart that I wanted to mention is that we are in the Southern Ocean. So there aren't many cities and communities that basically have the Southern Ocean on their doorstep. So it's not. We often think about islands in the Pacific and the Caribbean, but we are in the Southern Ocean, and the Southern Ocean is the world's largest carbon sink. So about 75% of the Southern Ocean is the meeting place of all the world's oceans, so any changes in it will have an impact on all ocean currents.
And so you've explained a little bit about Tasmania and where it is, but how, as an island city, Hobart, how does the islandness, for want of a better word, impact you as a city and the wider state? And also as part of that, why is it important that cities like Hobart are part of the conversation here at COP28?
Well, I think islands need to stick together. We are often overlooked. We are small connected communities, but sometimes in terms of projects and influence, we can be overlooked by some of the bigger players. And in Australia, Tasmania is the least populated state, and so it is less likely to sort of get the attention of the other bigger states. But islands globally also need to stick together because we have a lot of similarities, even though we have a lot of cultural differences. We do have a lot of similarities. We've got islands are often places where good ideas begin. And good ideas can be piloted, and that sharing of knowledge between islands is a really important part of building capacity in quite small communities. So we've joined a new island network called the 2030 Islands Network, and that really is as a sub-national government, we are a local government, but we've decided it's a really important network to join. For a whole range of reasons, including the fact that if Australia is going to host COP31, we'd really like to collaborate with other islands. We've got a very strong interest in that high ambition climate action that you see coming from the islands right around the world, and as a state that really prides itself on its zero emissions electricity sector, and its clean green image. We see a lot of synergies with all islands who are very much leading the debate on things like 1.5 degrees, now leading the debate on the fossil fuel phase out. So, we think it's a really important network to be part of and to bring what we can in terms of knowledge and capacity building that we can bring to the network as well.
And we've seen that here in these conversations already, that these connections between different islands, of course, Tasmania has its own specific context, and I guess we should refer to it really as an archipelago of islands as opposed to just one island. But being disconnected from the continent of Australia also makes Tasmania in its own way peripheral, but actually has its own competitive advantages of its situation, and I think that's very interesting. So you told me before that there is an interesting opportunity in Tasmania in the research and development sector, specifically as you look down towards the Antarctic. So how has Tasmania differentiated itself with these opportunities as a way to build the local economy, provide jobs, and provide opportunities?
Yeah, Tasmania has had a long history of being fairly economically poor, and very traditional resource extraction industries like forestry. However, a tiny little place with a population of only a few tens of thousands of people did actually come up with some of the first hydroelectricity projects in the world, certainly the first hydroelectricity in Australia, but I think it was very close to some of the first hydroelectricity actually in the world came from Tasmania, so that was a very strong innovation. The island has identified that even though hydroelectricity is a lot of it's old hydro, marketing itself as the 100% electricity and actually pushing now for 200% renewable energy through the development of wind farms is a really important way for Tasmania to, I guess, distinguish itself from many of the other states which are doing really fantastic work on climate change but are still extracting a lot of fossil fuels. So Australia is actually producing 3 times more fossil fuels than the United Arab Emirates. We are a very big fossil fuel producer and exporter. So in that sense, Tasmania is a real standout in that we don't extract or export fossil fuels, and we have the 100% renewable electricity. So we can certainly use that to try and pitch ourselves as a place that people should come and work from and do great work in the world and identify some of those climate solutions based on 100% renewable electricity.
What are the other big sectors of the economy in Hobart? I think I've heard that you have a growing tourism industry, but what are the big pillars of the economy in the city?
So Hobart's only 240,000 people, and the entire state of Tasmania is only 500,000 people. So this is a really small place, and tourism has been a part of the economy for a very long time, and it continues to be an important part of the economy. But as a mayor of a very tourist-dependent economy, I'm keen to also build up the knowledge economy sectors of our city, because tourism is great, but it does generally have low incomes. It does sometimes generate other issues for us. In terms of housing and homelessness challenges with Airbnb and visitor accommodation. So education, research and science, tourism are really important parts of our city economy. And we'd really like to grow more into the knowledge economy, sustainability, research and development space.
I know that as we mentioned before, there are different cities participating in this, and so you're part of the Global Covenant of Mayors, which is one of the important networks for cities here. How has Hobart or how has your administration benefited from building those connections with other cities and participating in programs like this? I think what you mentioned there about the knowledge economy is very interesting. How is that let's say a competitive advantage for many islands to be able to look at how, although they may be less conveniently situated geographically, and that comes with its disadvantages, actually global connectivity, remote working, all these other things provide a huge new opportunity?
Absolutely. So the Global Covenant of Mayors is a huge network. It's now 13,000 local governments have signed up to be part of this network. The main thing that unifies all of the cities is a commitment to report emissions annually through a common methodology. So it's a fairly simple commitment, but that allows us to have a picture of the action that's happening at the city level right around the world. And for Hobart, it's a really important network to be part of, because we can really tap into the learnings of other cities. We only have one climate change officer at the City of Hobart. We're not a huge council, so the ability to tap into the knowledge from other cities, to learn about potential funding opportunities, and to work together to sort of advocate for stronger recognition of cities is a really important opportunity.
When it comes to the role of the city government in climate change, what exactly does that look like? Are you talking about adaptation, mitigation, both? As you say, you have a team of one, so it's limited. And what support or interactions do you have with the state government and the federal government when it comes to climate reduction of emissions and adapting to climate change?
Sure. So the City of Hobart itself, the organisation of the council, is a significant producer of emissions for our municipality, and that's because we are the managers of a landfill site that we have committed to closing by 2030. But even after we close it, if we are successful in reaching a zero waste to landfill target, which we've set, even if we reach that goal, the methane produced from the landfill site will be a legacy problem for us in terms of the emissions created by the city. So we have that very significant impact. We have a role in the design of buildings, the urban design of the city. Having a commitment to building more medium density housing is obviously going to lower the carbon footprint of the of city residents. We have a role in transport planning, in trying to encourage and regulate for more the use of active transport. So there's a whole range of touch points that cities have with climate policy, and a big message from Global Covenant of Mayors Cities here at the COP is that cities are really leading the agenda. They are often taking setting the bar much higher than their national governments have set it. And so we are trying to, as cities right around the world, demonstrate that we are aware there's a lot of action is taking place, but we could do even more. Like we could close our landfill quicker, or we could do more food and organics waste collection if we could have a bigger share of the taxation revenue. I don't know if it's the same in every country, but I think is similar. Of every $100 of taxes collected in my city, we get $4. So, over $80 goes to the federal government, and about $16 of every $100 in taxes goes to the state government. So, the financing, if we really want to get quick projects delivered in local communities fast, we need to ensure that there's more money available, that share of the taxation revenue, which is collected from our communities. We just don't get much of it back to spend at the local government level, and that's a very common call to action from all cities that are here at the COP. It's something that we share, that we would like to have a bigger chance to do more on climate change.
Definitely, and I think that's definitely very, very interesting about the responsibility that the local government has, but also the relative lack of funding in this case. But I found it very interesting to see the role of regions, states, municipalities at this COP in driving that conversation. As you say, it's often the subnational regions that are pushing this agenda, and often the island subnational regions or subnational island jurisdictions that are pushing that agenda to be further away. So just to wrap up, what would you like the audience and everyone watching on the live stream to take away, and why should they, what should they remember about Hobart and about Tasmania?
Wow. Okay. Well, we're a city of science. Some of the most important science for the planet's future is happening in our city, and we want to be leaders in sustainability. We want our voice about the importance of taking fast, urgent emissions reduction action is a message that we want to spread right around the country, both through, right around the world, both through the science that we're doing, but also through the leadership we're doing as part of a movement of mayors globally pushing for those really urgent emission reductions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Lord Mayor. It's really a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Island of Hope today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.